Saber Interactive's Toxic Commando is a game that really shouldn't be as fun as it is. On the surface, it just looks like your standard horde shooter, one that doesn't really seem to have anything all that unique going for it, and the only thing that even really makes it catch your eye to begin with is that it's got John Carpenter's name in the title. So as a result, when I saw review code for this thing in my inbox, I really went into it expecting very little, but yet instead I was pleasantly surprised. Every now and then, like a game like this comes along, one that has no delusions of grandeur, and reminds us that sometimes at the end of the day, all you really need is to shoot lots of nasty looking things with loud guns, and watch as they explode into small bits of goo.
Fist away!
I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing is far from being any kind of masterpiece, but as far as just mindless horde shooting goes, if you can get a couple of mates to lock in with and play this, well, you can do a hell of a lot worse. And it makes a pretty compelling argument for the simple enjoyment we get from these kind of AA games. So let's find out why that is, shall we?
Can we get to work now?
You heard the man. Let's go Commando.
No way.
Nobody's doing that.
But before I get too far into things, I do have to stop and thank Odoo for sponsoring this video. Now, if you run a business, manage projects, or even just want to get your work life more organized, Odoo is one of those tools that can genuinely make things a whole lot easier. But what is Odoo? Well, to sum the whole thing up, it's an all-in-one business management platform that bundles a whole bunch of applications into a single system. Instead of juggling separate tools for accounting, sales, marketing, and project management, Odoo brings everything together in one place. The cool part is that it's all modular, meaning you don't have to use everything at once. And you can even start with just a few apps, like an invoicing or project tracking, and then just add on more as you need it. There's dozens of apps available too, including things like website building, e-commerce, customer support, inventory management, and accounting. And because everything is all connected, your data flows seamlessly between each app, which means less time dealing with spreadsheets and more time actually running your business. It's also designed to be super flexible, so whether you're a freelancer, a small business owner, or even a larger company, you can tailor Odoo to fit the way you work. And since everything runs through one platform, you get a clear overview of your entire business, from sales and finances to customer relationships and projects. If this is all sounding groovy and you want to give it a try, you can even use your first app entirely free for life. So if you want to check it out for yourself, head on over and explore their huge library of apps over on odoo.com. And yeah, once again, thanks to these guys for sponsoring this video. Right, so the story in this one takes place in the future, at a point when there's been some kind of an energy crisis, so yeah, just the same as the present day, where this giant corporation's drilled into the earth in an attempt to harvest some kind of a power source. Only instead what it's done is cause this sentient sludge to spill out, which then infects and mutates everything it comes into contact with. It's basically like this intelligent organism with a hive mind that turns people into what's more or less zombies. All controlled by the sludge god, this giant organic mass that's the source of the infestation, and something that needs to be destroyed to stop this whole event. You're playing as one of the members of this ragtag crew of mercenaries sent in to clean the whole thing up, all of whom have very little expectations for the success. Doing all these high-risk operations and considered to be very expendable. In fact, I don't even think these characters are given names.
This is a shitburger.
And after a brief prologue/tutorial, it becomes very apparent these guys are just completely hopeless, and they lose the package they're supposed to be delivering after meeting the sludge god. Then saved by scientists named Leon, and finding out they're all now infected by the virus, with these vests they wear around their necks being the only thing staving off the infection. And with a time limit of about a week before they turn, they've got no choice to help out Leon.
If you want to cure the infection, you'll help me eliminate it at the source.
That's pretty much all the information we're given, where from that point on you're just doing all these missions, sorting out a bunch of odd jobs, before converging on this final confrontation against the sludge god. There's always cinematics that top and tail each of the main story missions, but honestly, none of these are anything to write home about. And these main characters are cookie cutter at the best of times, with some absolutely shocking dialogue and voice acting.
Best news I've heard since we met.
God killer. Hey, can you trademark that?
Still can't even really tell if this is supposed to be ironically bad or if it's just bad in general, but there really are moments here when you cannot believe just how stupid some of these people sound.
Hey, you think Leon's ever gotten laid?
Of course he's gotten laid. He's rich.
You know I can hear you.
Leon likes to listen. Kind of pervy.
You left the comms open.
No shame, Leon. Let's get spicy. Like Nana's pasta sauce spicy.
I'm allergic to spicy.
Who wrote this drivel?
Everyone's just that same amount of sarcastic, sardonic, and cynical, where it really makes none of them stand out at all.
Spleens, beans, machines. I can list things too.
Tell us we're done here.
Which isn't helping either, considering they all look like literal NPCs as opposed to actual main characters. I mean, two of the female characters have those kind of haircuts that are more or less just memes at this point. You know what I mean? Like the kind of stock haircut you see in the character creator for every single video game ever made.
Let's get spicy.
Early on in the story, you meet a side character named Gallagher. Yes, Gallagher. And this is your typical hardened and seasoned no-nonsense female soldier trope, who acts all tough and badass, but in reality would probably lose an arm wrestling match to a 5-year-old.
Damn. So, is there a Mr. Gallagher?
I am kind of curious too as to what involvement Carpenter actually had here though, considering as far as I could find, the dude hasn't really done all that much outside of just doing some work for the soundtrack. Which, you know, does kind of make sense. I mean, his best contribution to his own franchise was the music he did for that Halloween movie back in 2018. Along with, of course, that one line of dialogue that Ice Cube has in the hit 2001 movie Ghosts of Mars.
Come on, you mindless motherfuckers!
And as far as I can tell, all this dude does now is just hang out with his kids, compose music, and play video games. Which, you know, credit where it's due, is a pretty awesome way to spend your twilight years. So as for the actual writing and content here, well, yeah, I don't think he's had all that much involvement. Carpenter's famously said in the past that whenever someone approaches him to remake one of his movies or use his name in anything, that he just kind of ignores what they're saying, puts his hand out, and then asks for the check. In fact, he quite literally has said the same thing about Toxic Commando.
A few years ago, you had Toxic Commando get revealed, and I was wondering what your work on that video game is.
I hate to tell you what my work is, but I extend my hand and a check arrives in the...
So yeah, like aside from maybe the whole nihilistic aspect of this virus thing ending the world, like that could be applied here, but that's about all the John Carpenter DNA that this thing seems to have.
I extend my hand and a check arrives.
Oh yeah, aside from this one Easter egg to the spider creature from the Thing movie, which one of my mates actually found during one of our sessions.
There it is.
The thing is though, none of this really matters, and the story's really just there to get you from point A to B, just to kind of briefly explain what you're doing in the moment-to-moment gameplay. Gameplay which is all anyone's really going to care about. And Toxic Commando really continues this same trend that Saber Interactive have made their whole MO for the past few years now. Running again on the aptly named Swarm engine and similar to World War Z and Space Marine 2, in the way that it just allows for the player to take on these truly massive scale enemy counts. OMG. Where it feels like you're getting attacked by hundreds if not thousands of enemies at once. Just this never-ending and unstoppable barrage of cannon fodder mindlessly throwing themselves into your line of fire. Whenever I see this kind of thing, it always makes me think back to that bullshit tech demo we got for Serious Sam 4. Where the devs were going on about how they'd implemented this kind of system in their own game.
It's a really nice trick that allows you to have really thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of enemies on screen.
Only for it to of course be complete hogwash and smoke and mirrors.
Thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of enemies on screen.
But now though, we've got games like World War Z and Toxic Commando where that kind of concept has been fully realised. And I don't know man, like maybe I'm becoming a bit of a simpleton, but the sight of this stuff alone, just seeing this overwhelming field of hostiles running towards me is still enough to impress me. Even now at the ripe old age of 40. Yeah, I'm 40 now. Damn. Those key moments in the main missions when you're in these final stand sequences where you're just blasting away at enemies constantly, stopping only to reload before blasting again is just pure catharsis. Oh cow! One of the coolest sequences is during the first proper mission when you get to this church and you can just see hundreds of these things clambering over one another to try to reach the top of the building. And then as you get there, this huge explosion happens and they're all completely vaporized. So overall, like, it's definitely a gorgeous looking game at times, with some impressive environments and great atmospheric effects, not to mention that the whole thing seems to run pretty smoothly. I mean, like, there are a few things that I will point out though, like how for starters, this game feels the need to put yellow paint in the most randomest spots, and a lot of spots where it really doesn't feel like it's needed at all. I mean, I know this is a game where you spend most of it holding down the left mouse button and shooting zombies, but you guys don't need to treat us like complete idiots. And yes, like, I know technically they're supposed to be infected with sludge or whatever, but at the end of the day, these are still just zombies. Speaking of zombies, it is kind of hard to not compare this thing to Left 4 Dead, with there being those special infected types who can all incapacitate you in some similar ways. Like with this one called the Latcher that's more or less the same as the Smoker, grabbing onto someone and holding them in place. There's another variant similar to the Chargers called the Goons, one that rushes forward, grabs onto you, and then slams you into the ground over and over, which is, yeah, always fun.
We got a goon!
Another one's called the Nukers, kinda similar to the Boomers that explode when they're killed. Then of course you've got what's more or less the Tank, with this big fat asshole covered in glowing weak spots that can take a hell of a beating.
Knock it off.
And then just like Left 4 Dead, whenever someone's killed, they're gonna need to be rescued after respawning nearby by other players. The more unique ones are these types called the Stalkers, which have got a gun for an arm and can even knock you on your ass if you're hit by one of their projectiles. Whoa, what the hell was that?
Oh shit.
There's a few different varieties of these tendril things that pop out of the ground with different attacks. Like one, for instance, can shoot out this constant laser stream that just melts anyone that's caught in it. And then another one smashes down on anyone that gets too close.
Whack, whack.
I'd say that probably one of the more annoying zombie types here are the Skunks, which are these ones in hazmat suits that seem to have this ability to buff up other zombies in their vicinity. And these guys are annoying because half the time they blend in with everything else, and the only way you even realize that they're around is after you've lost half your health bar. Outside of the final fight against the Sludge God, which I'm obviously not going to spoil, there's not really any major encounters either, and the finale for each mission usually just ends with you having to take on a couple of hundred zombies in one of those last stand moments.
Sorry, you were in our way.
Oh yeah, so speaking of the missions, you've got 9 of these all up here, including that tutorial. You got the first proper mission where you meet up with Gallagher, and then start doing extra work for her little group, where from then on you're able to complete the next 5 missions in any order you want, before the final 2 in the third act, which again have to be played in order. And with all of these, like, basically what's happening is that you're dropped into this large open map, and then can tackle the objective in any way you want. And then outside of actually heading off for your main tasks, you can also fully explore the rest of the map, or to find extra resources and items which then contribute to bonus XP. Then once you finally do complete the mission, all this stuff is tallied up, with your overall XP being multiplied depending on what difficulty you're playing on, with the higher ones obviously making it much more worth your while, giving you an incentive to turn the difficulty up. You know, considering XP rules everything around me. Cream get the money, dollar bill y'all. No good. What's kind of neat as well is how you can hop into random vehicles and drive around too, which actually has some pretty awesome physics where you got to watch out for these piles of sludge, or else you're going to get bogged down and overwhelmed by enemies. Oh, good lord, that was bad. Some vehicles have even got a winch, which you can use to pull yourself out of these muddy spots, which is pretty fun, and also makes for some funny moments where you're trying to escape a horde that's barrowing down. And in fact, I haven't been up to my ankles in this much muck since I crawled out of your mum's bedroom last week. Vehicles all have different abilities too, like a couple of the Jeeps have an EMP blast, which is handy for knocking enemies back, and then the ambulance is able to heal everyone who's sitting in it. I know that Saber Interactive also worked on Mud Runner, which, as it turns out, is a very similar game in terms of how the vehicles control here. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me if they just copy-pasted the same mechanics right over here into Toxic Commando. But if nothing else though, like, it does at least add an interesting element to getting around the map, and it makes it far more complex than just mindlessly driving from one side to another. Oh my god, I'm like full on stuck here. You'll even have to keep these things topped up on petrol too, and it is insane just how quickly they seem to run out. But then again, given the current state of petrol prices in the world, it at least makes sense that things could be this grim in the near future. The other reason why it's worth exploring the map is to find all these equipment parts, because these things can be used in some pretty crucial ways.
I'll find a use for this.
First off, you can use them to unlock weapon boxes and get some pretty powerful guns.
Oh, where have you been all my life?
like a couple of different kinds of grenade launchers, which are pretty good at clearing out large groups of zombies, along with an LMG, which is really handy at letting you mow down waves of these things with ease. And you want to get nuts? Well, let's get nuts, because there's also a fucking railgun, which does have to charge up for each shot, but just does insane damage as well, even exploding in a big arc.
I'm keeping this one.
But the other thing you use these parts for is arguably more useful, and that's activating traps at some of the key standoff points in the map. Most missions usually end in that kind of last stand moment where you need to hunker down in one spot and then just survive this constant onslaught for a couple of minutes. So being able to set up things like automatic turrets, barbed wire blockades, or EMP traps does end up making a huge difference, and it does do a lot of the heavy lifting. So all up, like, there is a purpose to actually seeking this stuff out and not just trying to beeline straight for the end of the mission. Just kind of a shame that there never really seems to be all that much really differentiating all of these missions. Certainly not visually anyway, with everything sort of just blending in together. What does differentiate things though are the player classes, and regardless of who you're physically playing as, you've got 4 possible player classes here to choose from, all of which level up independently with their own skill trees and abilities, with Strike, Medic, the Operator, and then Support, and each of them having their own unique base ability. Now the first one I messed around with was Strike, which is really just your standard DPS class, with a skill where you can fire out all these damaging blasts, doing massive AoE damage and being really handy at clearing out large groups at once. It's not super deep or complex, just something you activate and then try to nuke as much stuff as possible. Trying to not give yourself an epileptic fit in the process, because holy shit is there a lot of stuff popping off here. After that, I buggered around with the Medic for a bit, and yeah, I don't think I even really need to explain what this one does. But it does bring up an interesting feature in how you do get modifiers for each class ability as they reach higher levels. Like with the Medic, for instance, the basic healing ability just drops down this dome that heals everyone standing in it for temporary health. But then with the higher variant, it instead instantly heals everyone for their entire health bar, which is just objectively more useful.
Show me what 10. Wow, that's beautiful.
Especially on hard mode, where medkits can be harder to come by than photos of your mum with her clothes on. Plus it also has an upgrade where the healing arc causes damage to enemies in the vicinity, giving you another much needed option for crowd control.
There you go.
So yeah, like definitely one of the more useful classes in the game, and also one of the most necessary, especially if you choose to play this thing solo, given how utterly useless the bots are.
We got a goon!
As for the other couple of classes, well, to be honest, like, I didn't really play these as much. The Operator, for instance, has a support drone that can fly around and dish out extra damage, and it's not that it's a useless class, but the damage it does doesn't really seem to make all that much of a difference. Especially when you compare it to the nukes coming out of the Strike class, where it seems even less effective. I mean, the Strike's off here dropping A-bombs, and it feels like the Operator's dropping water balloons in comparison. The final one is the Defender, which is similar to the Medic, only that instead of healing, the dome that it puts out instead acts like a shield, protecting the squad from incoming damage. And then any zombie that walks into that effect is going to take passive damage along with extra weapon damage on top of it. So I could see this thing being really useful on the higher difficulties, taking down some of the tougher enemies. Yeah boys, fuck, that works so much better. But for just casual relaxed play on normal or even hard mode, it really didn't seem that crucial. Mostly just because a decent Medic and a Strike can pretty much carry an entire team. What I do like though is how easily you can just remove a skill point if you change your mind or want to mess around with a different setup, really encouraging experimentation and not locking you into a specific build. And with there being quite a lot of options there, like, I can see people coming up with some pretty broken builds for some of these classes. Oh yeah, and is it just me, or does this skill tree window kind of look like the motion tracker overlay from the Aliens films?
I think he's got a point.
Finally getting onto all the shooting and all of that stuff, there's no shortage of guns on offer here too. And as has pretty much become the style for these kind of games, you're able to equip a primary weapon like an assault rifle, SMG or shotgun along with a sidearm, either 2 kinds of pistol or a revolver, followed by a secondary item like a grenade or a Molotov, and then finally a melee weapon, though you will be using that primary weapon the most by far. And overall the gunplay feels pretty damn good, like you get just the right amount of recoil when you're firing weapons, so it doesn't feel like you're using a laser pointer, and the sound design for all of these is on point. It also helps that the gore effects are great as well. And empty a magazine into a wall of approaching zombies and you'll see blood and body parts flying all over the place. Then hit a group with a grenade launcher and you'll see them all ragdoll into the air, which is a hell of a lot better than just having them all vanish as soon as they're killed.
Hey, look out!
Toxic Commando's got a similar XP system to World War Z in the way that you level up weapons the more you use them and the more kills you get, with attachments being locked behind specific levels. Unlocked with a resource called Sludgeite, which is speckled at random all over the environments, which you then spend on all these different bits of equipment. And something which you're going to constantly be seeking out, considering a single attachment can cost upwards of 10,000 Sludgeite alone, where you soon end up just mindlessly collecting the stuff like some kind of helpless kleptomaniac. Though I will say that I do like it how they've made it so you can just hold down the interact button and get an entire stack at once. And thank God as well that they've made it so it's shared with every single player. That is to say that if one person picks it up, everyone gets the same amount. It's not unique to the person that grabbed it. Weapon XP is also separate to player and then class XP, which is kinda good in the sense that on the off chance you fail a mission, at least all the experience you earn for that weapon isn't going to be entirely lost. And it does seem like how well you play here is based more off the level of your guns than anything else. I mean, some of the attachments alone make massive improvements on the handling of weapons. Like even something as simple as a foregrip, a weapon sight, or an extended mag can massively improve how well a gun performs. And then updating the tier of a weapon buffs up its base damage, making it even more effective. The only thing I'd mention is that I didn't really see all that much of a difference between a lot of these guns, just in the way of how they feel during combat. I mean, I started off using that basic assault rifle they first give you, and I leveled that thing up for a couple of hours until it reached its max rank, buying a bunch of attachments and raising its stats and all that kind of stuff. After a little while though, I kinda got bored, so I swapped over to the Vector submachine gun and played with that for a bit instead, where it was more or less just the same in terms of how it took the enemies out. I mean, obviously the SMG has a faster firing rate and worse accuracy at longer distances, but in terms of just mowing down heaps of zombies at once, there really wasn't that much of a difference. When I changed to the automatic shotgun after that, again, same thing. I mean, it still seemed to be pretty effective at mowing down most zombies with ease. Only thing is that with a shotgun, I obviously had to be standing a lot closer to what I was shooting at. I guess my point is that the weapon you go with is really just gonna come down to preference, as is whatever hideous skin you choose to put on it. And yeah, dog, I'm not kidding here when I say that some of these weapon skins are an absolute eyesore. The only other thing I'd say that's worth mentioning is how a lot of these guns are quite literally just copied over from World War Z, in that they are the exact same gun models, and in some instances, the names of them haven't even been changed either, like with the assault carbine, the assault shotgun, the Vector, and the bullpup rifle. And in fact, I think it's also a smaller roster than what we had in World War Z. I don't know, I guess there's only so many times you can model an Uzi before you just say fuck it and copy over your homework.
Feel better already?
And I can't really tell if this is incredibly lazy or kind of justified, so you know what, I'll let you guys be the judge.
So one of you knows how to think.
At the end of the day, and in the infamous words of Harry Callahan, you gotta ask yourself one question, and that is, like, how long are you really gonna play this thing before it starts to get boring? Finishing all the story missions for the first time took me about 10 or so hours, but then once that's done, all that's really left to do is go back in there and replay all those missions again, on both the hard and then very hard difficulty, along with leveling up all the different classes to the max rank as well as all the weapons. I mean, that's about it.
That's about it.
You have got that RNG element to replaying the missions in the way that it's obviously not going to replicate the same experience twice, but it's still just going to be the same old thing of shooting lots of zombies over and over. And I know that getting through it on that highest difficulty is going to obviously take a lot more time and effort, but is it really going to be worth it? Or for something that's probably going to be dead in a month anyway? Overall, I don't think Toxic Commando is a bad game, but it really does just feel like a bunch of other game mechanics and ideas all thrown into one, which it kind of is. Like how all of the weapons, for instance, and the shootings just kind of copied over from World War Z, through to the driving mechanics being near verbatim to the Mud Runner series. Even just this whole premise of fighting a whole bunch of enemies at once, I mean, we've seen this thing all done by this point, and while it's certainly not bad here, it is just the same thing we've all played a dozen times over. Whether it be in Killing Floor, Vermintide, Darktide, World War Z, Left 4 Dead, or Back 4 Blood. Lol. Having said that though, like, I still do think you can have a great time here if you just want to blast through something with a bunch of your mates. I mean, short of everyone standing around in a circle and Dutch ruddering each other into oblivion, it's a pretty good way to kill some time with your friends.
I think he's got a point.
And it is worth keeping in mind that this isn't a full price game. I mean, the standard edition, for instance, in Aussie dollary dues is about $60. And they're even doing bundle deals at the moment where you can get Space Marine 2 thrown in as well. So if you can go into this with that mindset and not expect this thing to get down on its knees and blow you before cooking your breakfast, well, there is a lot of fun to be had. I just hope the next time we get Carpenter's name thrown into a video game title that he finds the energy to actually be a bit more involved.
I extend my hand and a check arrives in the...